In today's video, I'm going to share a story from a student who is using my Thoracic Outlet Syndrome program. This student ran into some challenges that she didn't know how to fix, and she came to me for help, and you're going to see what happened. This story is going to explain some key lessons that'll help you fix your body if you've got those hand and wrist and elbow issues, if you feel that numbness and that tingling of the Thoracic Outlet Syndrome diagnosis. You're going to learn what some of the limitations are when you're trying to get help from somebody else, and you're going to learn how you can think right so that you can move right, so you can feel right. So if you're ready, let's get ready to think right, move right, and feel right. So the whole email exchange is pretty long, and it starts off basically with E telling me about some issues that she's been dealing with, and despite some very challenging health issues, she's been working hard to make sure that her body feels better. Now, as a result of a lot of typing on the computer during the holidays, she started noticing these symptoms coming on, and she started doing the program, and she started doing one of these stretches, which is a chest opener with your arm placed high. Okay, so in the program, it's like the high arm chest arm opener with arm high, and you just get up against the door or the wall, and then you start to go into this position. So your arm is up here, and the goal is to start creating more external rotation at the shoulder. And so E was telling me that this position basically immediately kicked in numbness and tingling. It just didn't feel good. She also mentioned that when she was going to sleep at night, that she'd wake up with her elbows feeling sore, everything down below going numb and just feeling awful, which, boy, do I remember those nights. And so she asked if there was anything that I could tell her that might be helpful. Oh, and she also mentioned that she had made improvements over the years of being able to get into this position, into this goalpost position. And she also noticed that in the program, doing these little goalpost rotations was fine. This stuff didn't cause any issues, but going here into the stretch would cause issues. So she's wondering what's going on and how can I fix this? So I told her that, based on this, I would suggest a couple things. One is to make sure when you're typing on the computer for long periods of time that you use a split keyboard. That's a recommendation I strongly make to anybody with TOS who has to type a lot. A second thing was to start doing some stuff to open up the elbows more. So I have a video that I sent her to help her get the elbow to straighten out more and to balance things out, because I have found personally in my journey, being on the phone, reading books, reading on iPad, whatever, it's always like this. Typing, it's always like this. The elbow is always in flexion. And then I would find that, I still find actually that my elbows like to be stuck in flexion rather than going into full extension, and that creates some compression issues, it feels like. So opening that up actually really helps make sure that you get better blood flow. I also told her that if I understand correctly, you might also want to try to do some lat stretching and experiment with hand position. So that would look like, getting to a rail here and then figuring out if you can open things up in a little bit of a funky position, side bending, twisting, adjusting your foot position to see if you can get a different stretch to help the lats open up, because the lats, if they're pulling down, if they're pulling hard, they're going to be pulling your shoulder into this rounded position, and that can often restrict you from going into shoulder external rotation, because the lats go from here down through your armpit, along your ribs, into your low back. So they create internal rotation. So if I'm asking you to open up into external rotation and your lats aren't letting you, you're going to run into a problem. It's not going to be comfortable. So you need to make sure the lats don't restrict. So I gave her those options, and I did preface it by saying, hey, if I understand this correctly, because when you're going through email, it's basically impossible to know for sure if you are understanding the other person 100%. Even when we're speaking in person, it's hard to know if you understand somebody 100%. So I told her that, and I said, hey, let me know how it goes. And this is where I want you to pay close attention, because I want to be really clear. I only kind of helped, but I didn't actually solve her problem. So she wrote me back about 10 days later and said, I just wanted to update you on this problem, which is already much better. Boom, awesome. After a bit more work and reflection, I realized that part of the problem was a lack of strength. My shoulders have opened up a lot into a new position, but I hadn't developed strength to support them there even when resting. As soon as I concentrated more on the strength routine, things improved, particularly the kneeling overhead press and overhead band adduction. So kneeling overhead press is when you're down on the ground and just getting an overhead press going, right? So the reason I have you do this is because when you're in a kneeling position, you can be a little bit more stable. You're not having to manage so many things. And if you're standing, you have a tendency to go into a big back arch, which I don't want to encourage. We're trying to keep everything locked in place. So going into this kneeling or half kneeling position and then doing the overhead raise means you have a better chance of keeping the torso locked down, keeps the ribs locked down while you develop some more of that overhead control. So that helped her a lot. And also doing some band work overhead can help a lot. So if you have a band attached over here, going over there, just going like that, training some of these armpit muscles, these muscles here on the side to stabilize your shoulder can be super helpful. And she said, I know this is something you talk about a lot. Strength is so important for a lot of people who have desk jobs, because if you are one of these knowledge workers of the modern age, you're probably not doing that much to maintain strength in any part of your body. Most of your day is spent teaching your muscles to just get weaker and weaker and weaker. And I know that because I've been there, and I still do that because I spend a lot of time sitting at the computer doing video edits for this channel, right? So in E's case, being able to get to this position, those were all improvements, but without the strength to stabilize, she just didn't feel good, right? So what she then said was, I reviewed the exercises that triggered the symptoms and found that although I was not consciously lifting my shoulder, the corner of my shoulder was lifting because my shoulders still turn forward and in, and my arm can't get above a certain height without the corner lifting. And I'm actually not sure which corner she's talking about. I suspect she's talking about this corner, so the medial edge of the scapula up here was probably rounding a little bit, but it could have been this corner too. I can't quite tell because, again, it's email. And she said, as soon as I keep to a height where that doesn't happen, there's no jamming and no symptoms, even leaning into the wall. So that is a really important point. When you're doing any new stretch, any new exercise, you want to make sure that you know exactly what you're trying to accomplish. And if you notice that something is compensating, I'm going to try to twist here so you can see, you notice that, oh, maybe this is starting to rise up when it's not supposed to, then you have to back it down, right? Don't go as high. If you're trying to do just a standard chest stretch and you notice, oh, the shoulder is rolling forward like this, you need to make it a little easier, more controllable, so that you're focusing the effort in the right place. In the same way, doing these kneeling overhead presses that we're talking about here, like if you're trying to do them and you're arching because your actual range of motion is terrible, then you have to limit the weight that you're using and try your darndest to make sure that you're doing it correctly, right? You can't just force things, because you will ultimately create either other problems or just aggravate yourself and create worse problems, okay? So she also mentioned that the videos I sent her on the elbows were actually helpful because she is prone to reading thick, heavy books. So again, this drives the point home. If you're holding on to a thick, heavy book and maybe you're just taking a constitutional and just walking around and reading, your biceps are still working. These muscles that create elbow flexion are still working. Even if you think this is relaxing for your mind and it's nice and wonderful, it's making you smarter, it's still having a physical effect on your elbows, which, by the way, it's also going to affect your shoulders, right? So in that case, I was right. What I suggested was right, so yay me. But the big work, the most important work, was E actually paying attention to what was going on with her body, really paying attention to position, paying attention to execution of the exercise, and really noticing what her body was doing to cheat and to create different problems, or to actually create the symptoms that she's trying to make better. And then by making sure she also strengthened her body, then she was able to really make progress and make those symptoms go away. Now, all that said, if you are somebody who is always at the gym and you're always doing pull-ups, you're always doing bench press, you're always doing heavy lifting, or you're doing some repetitive stuff like you're a rower, you're a surfer, you're a swimmer, then you might need to consider how your body is different from the average person. Because if you're constantly doing a bunch of high repetition activity, you might have to do a lot more stretching than somebody who's not. You might not need to do so much strengthening of certain muscles like your lats, and you might need to do more strengthening of muscles that are on the opposite side of the spectrum, right? The ones that help create this motion, the ones that help balance it out so that you don't get jammed up in your shoulders and in your chest. So again, to recap, one of the most important parts of your journey if you are fighting with thoracic outlet syndrome is to learn how to listen and pay attention. The TOS program that I have on my website is designed to help you do that, but it can't make you do that. So if you don't pay attention and you just kind of mindlessly do exercises, it's not really going to help. You have to learn to actually tune in and make sure you're feeling the right muscle. If you're doing a stretch and you're just feeling jamming in your shoulder, you're probably doing it wrong. If you're doing the stretch correctly, you'll feel the correct muscle, learning how to lengthen. If you're doing a strength exercise, you want to make sure that your form is good and that you're not just cheating and doing the wrong thing the whole time. And while this is challenging, it is vital to the process because your ability to actually feel the right thing will translate into the ability to move and position your body intentionally in the way that you want and or need. And that is ultimately what you need to be able to do to relieve the symptoms. You need to balance things out. So if you're somebody who's all twisted up, you need to learn how to fire the right muscles to get untwisted. If you're somebody who is super burly and buff and always doing the same stuff at the gym every single day, then you might need to learn how to balance that out and relax a little bit and get things moving the right way again. But it's going to depend on your body, your lifestyle, your training habits or non-habits, and all of that is going to come into play with getting yourself out of pain. If you want to check out the Thoracic Outlet Syndrome program that I have, I invite you and encourage you to do so. And I also want to remind you that it is 100% money back guaranteed. So I don't want to make money or keep money from anybody that I'm not actually helping. So give it a try. If it helps you, I will be stoked. I'm pretty sure you'll be very happy too. If it doesn't help you, no problem. I love that I can give you your money back if it doesn't help you, but I really hope that it does help you. I've done my best to make it as helpful as possible. So go to my website. You'll find a direct link to the program down in the description box. I'll leave it there for you and also in the comments. And if you want more free videos to help you with your shoulders or the rest of your body, be sure to check these out here. Like, share, and subscribe with the bell notification on. And as always, I hope you remember that pain sucks, life shouldn't.